Hello, I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of the RedChip Money Report. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up, American Resources Corporation, stock symbol AREC on the NASDAQ. American Resources is a next-generation supplier of raw materials to the new infrastructure market. It has assembled a large portfolio of met carbon assets serving the steel industry and has secured the rights to advanced technology that could revolutionize the market for rare earth elements, critical to the world's technology infrastructure. Then Dragonfly, stock symbol DFLYF on the OTCQB. Dragonfly is one of the oldest operating drone companies, an award-winning, industry-leading manufacturer and technology developer serving the public safety, agriculture, industrial inspections, security, and mapping and surveying markets. Dragonfly is set to capitalize on the rapidly growing interest in drone services. Later in the show, you'll see an interview with the CEO. Now, before we get to our first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. If you want to invest in the microcap space, buy companies, not stocks. If you buy stocks, the daily fluctuations and lack of liquidity will drive you crazy. This quote comes from Byron Roth. He's an investment manager featured in Chapter 7 of Small Stocks, Big Money. Now, this is a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy today at redchip.com or on Amazon. Now let's get started with our first interview with American Resources Corporation.
Mark, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
It's my pleasure. Now, American Resources is a next-generation supplier of raw materials to the massive new infrastructure market. I want to start with an overview of your business.
Yeah, so we started this business 5 years ago with the sole goal of focusing purely on the infrastructure market, where we could go in and take over operations that were run really inefficiently and had a lot of waste associated with them. And by doing so, we could make them a much more efficient supplier to the steel industry and now as well to the electrification market, really just revitalizing how it's done so that we're getting products to our customers more efficiently and ultimately they could build infrastructure more efficiently.
Well, let's talk about your mining properties for coal in West Virginia and Kentucky. Tell us about those projects and what you expect in revenue on the coal this year.
Yeah, so what we did is we acquired over $500 million of asset value in Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia. And when we bought them, we shut down the thermal coal mining operations because at the end of the day, it's a dying industry. And what we focused on strictly is the metallurgical carbon business. And by doing so, by acquiring these massive complexes, we've been able to streamline them so that we can generate real revenues and real cash flows. We've given guidance this year of over $70 million in revenue with about a 28% EBITDA margin. But the unique thing about our business is we can effectively double our revenue every year from here on out just by focusing on the assets that we already own today.
And where are those properties?
Yes, right on the border of that Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia corridor. Probably some of the best labor force you'll ever find around there. They're really talented people, and it's one of the major drivers of employment in the region. So they're really efficient to operate. We can access both the East Coast as well as the Great Lakes and the ports down in Louisiana, which gives us extreme flexibility from an operations to get our product across the seas as well as domestically.
Let's talk about the rare earth elements, how you're processing those, where you're getting them, how you're getting them.
Yeah, when we looked at the market 4 years ago on the critical elements rare earth side of the business, we saw that obviously there's a problem. And more importantly, in the mining industry, there was a lot of waste and there was a lot of environmental runoff. And we wanted to find a real solution to it. And to do that, we partnered with the scientific community. We partnered with major universities. We've gotten hundreds of millions of dollars of grants from the government to develop a process to be able to produce rare earths domestically. What we knew we had to find a technology chain to do that. Thankfully, we put that together. We announced our Purdue relationship where we can use chromatography, the only environmental way to actually isolate and purify critical elements. Nobody's doing it in the US today. I'm dead set, and my team is dead set on being the first one to do it. And then also our technology with Dr. Body, our electrolysis technology, absolute game changer, where we can not only clean up mining operations, but we can also clean up the fly ash of these utilities, really help clean up the prior coal-fired power plants that you see operating today and the billions of tons of waste that they produced over the years by extracting the rare earths out of them so you can even monetize the byproducts as well.
Well, how soon will you go into production on the rare earth minerals?
Yeah, so we just announced, we brought on a guy named Bill Smith. Bill is, unparalleled knowledge of the asset and the technology. He spent 33 years at Eli Lilly developing chromatography facilities and building chromatography facilities, managing the global manufacturing process for them. We are actually right now looking for the location, the site selection to build our first facility with the goal of starting building right away. It's already been designed, so our goal is to have it done, have the first phase of it done this year where we could actually start generating revenues from it.
So what about permitting for the facility?
Chromatography is not overly it's actually the environmentally safest way to do it. So permitting phase and the regulatory environment, it's a lot easier of a process because you're not using really harsh chemicals and acids to produce the product, to purify the product. And then also down in Kentucky on the securing of our facilities, we're actually just sitting on top of existing coal mining permits and absorbing really the bad stuff in the waters to clean up the waters while at the same point producing critical elements that we can then process.
Mark, we've talked a lot about chromatography, using that to process these rare earth minerals. I want you to explain how that works, that technology works.
Yeah, ligand-based chromatography it's really not that complicated, even for a guy like me who's not a scientist, to get your arms around. But what it is, it's using basically it's almost like a distillery, right? So when you try to produce a really pure product, you use chromatography, and what ends up coming out of it is the purest product. It's got to be a 99.5% purity. That's why Eli Lilly used it in drug manufacturing, and predominantly most of their drugs are made that way. And so it's basically, and to build it, it's kind of off the shelf type parts. You're adding different components together and being able to produce it through the chromatography process, and you're basically locking in and capturing and pulling out the elements that when you get to that stage of the process, so that it's only targeting the certain elements that you're trying to grab. Where we've taken our business and what we're focused on is trying to monetize 100% of all of the assets we own. When we bought this $500 million worth of assets, we knew we were only focusing on the met carbon at the time. And by cleaning up the environment, we can focus on extracting the rare earths as well. Our whole entire focus is going after old waste materials, waste mining materials, where it's the stuff that comes out of the ground that's not the coal. And then the fly ash that the utilities produce, as well as with the technology from Purdue, we can recycle existing lithium-ion batteries and recycle existing permanent magnets to produce lithium, to produce neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium from those waste products.
Well, this is a particularly important development then, because most of our rare earth elements come from China and Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah, they produce 85% of the world's rare earths come from China, because in China, they have no environmental standards. They have very low labor rates. So what we had to do is we had to compete based on technology and processes and put together a process that can compete head to head in the cost structure of China. And we've officially done that now. Because of the byproducts that we can monetize throughout the process, and because of the automation and the technology and the way that our teams work together, we can compete against them where, at the end of the day, everybody says we want to be energy independent. We're not. We rely entirely on China for the electrification market, for windmills, for electric vehicles. We're going to put an end to that. Our company's goal is to make the United States energy independent on all aspects, including the electrification market.
And the coal mines, what's the total asset value, and what's the asset value of the rare earth elements on your properties?
We've acquired over $500 million of assets from these big legacy mining complexes. When they went bankrupt, we went in and acquired them and streamlined them, rebuilt them, made them more efficient. So we put a lot of enhancement into that value as well. And then on the same point, we're using a lot of those same facilities, those same locations to process critical elements. We'll probably put about $4 to $10 million to work, depending on how fast we ramp up our revenue base on the critical element side. But the amount of deposits we have, we'll continue to be expanding them because we have the exclusive technology, not only here domestically, but also worldwide to be able to do this. So it's just layering our technology on top of our properties, which we have well over 100 sites we can do, but also our partners' properties that are asking us to come in and help fix their environmental problems.
So Mark, you're going from essentially zero revenue in 2020 to a projected 55 to 75 million in 2021, just on the coal assets. correct?
Yeah, just on the metallurgical carbon. Yep.
Okay. I want to talk about some of the key players on your team.
The unique thing about our team is pretty much everybody associated with our company are also equity owners of our business. Myself and Tom Savi and Kirk Taylor, our CFO, and we're all founders of the business. So we're not hired guns that came in here to make this business better. And then we brought on Tarlis Thompson, who had over 25 years of mining experience and bought into our culture of low cost and honestly disrupting legacy industries. And then on the rare earth side, brought in Bill Smith, 33 years of experience in chromatography. Dr. Body, who developed the patents to utilize electrolysis to process coal waste and coal byproducts as well as fly ash. And then, I mean, even Dan Hassler and the Purdue team, Linda Wang. I mean, we put together a really cool scientific team that are just absolutely passionate about solving these problems and commercializing, generating revenue.
Mark, in summary, what is the essential value proposition? You're trading, as of the date of this recording, at about a 250 million market cap, and that's without reporting any revenue at this point. What's the essential value proposition for investors today in a couple sentences?
Yeah, I would say there's two major points to focus on. One, our met carbon business. Our goal over the next 3 years to ramp up to over 500 million in revenue with about 100 to 125 million dollars of EBITDA. That's without an infrastructure bill. You pass an infrastructure bill, and the amount of steel that we're going to need is going to be tremendous. Then you turn to our critical elements and rare earth business. At the end of the day, we'll be the first company in the United States to be able to process and purify rare earth elements. Our peers are trading at a $7 billion market cap on 200 million in revenue. Our ability to clean up the environment and actually make and utilize waste products to produce rare earths and ramp this up to a couple hundred million in revenue in relatively short order, you're talking a couple of years, is, I think, game changer. And at the end of the day, help make the United States an energy independent country. But doing it in a way that we're actually commercializing environmentalism. I think that's a huge appeal to the investor base, but more importantly, we're going to be able to continue to grow that and continue to ramp it up and continue to grab market share and take it away from China at a cost competitive nature.
You got to love this story, Mark. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Dave, thanks for having me on. We're passionate about it. We love our business, and we're going to fight every day to make it a successful company.
Now, to get more information on American Resources Corporation, visit arecinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. Now, it's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-REDCHIP to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com. This features emerging growth companies like American Resources Corporation. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. Now let's move on to our next interview with Dragonfly.
Cameron, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Dave. We really appreciate being here.
Now, you're one of the oldest drone companies in North America. Talk to us about your platform and why you've outlasted many drone companies.
Yeah, we are very fortunate to be the oldest commercial drone manufacturer and solution provider in the world, as a matter of fact. And the reason that we've been able to do that, I believe anyway, is because we are laser focused on customer solutions. So we tend not to chase a shiny object of what might be the next big thing, but we really focus on our incredible customer base and the demands that they're making, the practical things that they're seeing and that they need to be developed for them. So we have a long history of innovation. We have over 19 patents in our portfolio, dozens more pending, but they've all come out of customer experiences. So we find that as long as we stay laser focused on the customer and making them better at what they do or what they need, then we tend to, be around for 20 plus years.
Well, Dragonfly owns about 18 patents, as I understand it. A lot of the technologies that drones use today are really based on technology that you developed.
Dave, interestingly enough, we now have 19 granted patents. And the latest patent is actually, in our view, a groundbreaking patent that actually does load balancing for a cargo drone to do vertical takeoff, but then horizontal flight. And in that transition, to be able to have some load balancing and some power transition that's highly efficient. Again, we've been working on this patent for quite some time, so it actually affects a lot of a lot of drones that are already out there. And that speaks largely to our entire patent portfolio that has been developed over the last 20 years, and are some of the fundamental patents for the entire industry. So if you've got a patent that, or excuse me, a drone that has folding arms, or if you've got a drone that has removable blades, or if you have a drone that fits in a backpack, you know, very simple things like that, you're probably infringing on one of our patents. Now, we also have many more sophisticated patents around that deal with sense and avoid and machine vision and you know, line of sight triangulation, a bunch of different things. But at the heart of it, you know, we innovate constantly. Every year, we're coming out with 1 or 2 more patents that are very fundamental. So we've got lots of other ones that are on the drawing board, but it's really the customer work that we do that dictates which ones we pursue and put into patent.
Now, one of your verticals is public safety. I'd like you to give our viewers an example of a drone that is used in public safety.
All right, the best example of a search and rescue drone that we have is our Commander drone, which, for example, in 2013 was used by a federal search and rescue party to find an accident victim that had wandered in cold weather away from a single car accident, had a head injury. And after search party and helicopters couldn't find the individual, we had a thermal camera attached to the Dragonfly drone, and within about 25 minutes, the subject was found. That drone was actually credited with being the first drone to save a human life, and that drone today sits in the Smithsonian.
What are some of the markets that you serve? We talked about public safety. What other markets do you serve?
Well, certainly public safety, we have very strong roots in. However, we are also incredibly deep in agriculture, mining, power, forestry, medical or health security services. Pretty much anywhere where you can think the use of a drone, we approach those markets or those verticals with providing an entire solution. So we have customers that come to us and say, hey, look, we're looking for, you know, this result. They don't come to us looking necessarily for, we're looking for this particular drone. You know, they say, you know, we want to count inventory, or we want to be able to understand our pine beetle infestation, or we want to be able to get vaccines to offshore rigs. And so the whole logistics, the whole business case, the whole engineering phenomena that has to be put in place in order to make that a viable solution for our customer is how we approach things. And there really isn't an industry today that's not going to be touched by drones.
You service a number of very large companies. Why do these big companies choose your company?
Well, the big thing that I think most companies and certainly governments or agencies are realizing about drones is that there's probably nothing better that collects data than a drone. Now, a drone is also highly effective in doing tasks or carrying out functions in replacement of you know, humans in dangerous situations. So it can be delivering packages or sniffing out sour gases or whatever the case is. But moreover, it's really all about the data these days. And the data that a drone can collect is just so incredible. But that data becomes the most important asset of the company or the organization that we're either flying missions for or designing software for or implementing our sensors for. So those organizations are coming to an organization that's been around a long time, has all the right clearances, has all the right patents, has a demonstrated record of delivering results in a secure manner, and it gives them somebody to trust. Drone operations these days are much more about than putting up an airframe. They're really about deriving critical data or critical infrastructure functions to our customers.
Cameron, I want to talk more about your business model. In our conversations, you've said it's really not about the hardware, it's about the solutions. So talk to us more about the business model and develop that idea for us.
You know, on our staff, we have certainly more than just aeronautical engineers or engineers that can build the airframe. We have business analysis, we have data scientists, we have AI specialists, we have software development, because it's a total solution that the customer is looking for. If we have a forestry company that's looking for an inventory count, at the same time, we can provide them the topographical layout of their entire forest or their entire area where they're pulling yield from. We can let them know how the runoff is doing. We can give them germination reports. We can give them pine beetle reports. We can do all of that stuff and provide an analysis that actually then starts to look at, hey, what can their yields be? That's the true value of what a drone company can do or a solution company can do. When we talk about them reforesting tracts of land, they don't want a drone that can just shoot a germination pod into the ground. They want to understand what the yield's going to be. And so we look backward into the science. How could we make the germination pod better? How can we create an environment where their yields can be better improved? And because we're at the pincer point of being able to collect all that data, we're also at the best advantage point to be able to provide them with the information they need to make that critical decision on what to do next to make them more competitive.
And what is it about 2021 that you believe will drive very, very strong revenue growth?
I think there's three key factors that are driving revenue growth, not just for us, but for the entire industry. First is regulation. So regulation has gotten to a point where it's now becoming practical, where the ROI is immediate for companies to be able to use drones because they can be used in a regulated, safe manner. The second thing is technology. The technological capabilities of drones now have reached a point where, again, the ROI on a project is really only up to the imagination of the customer. Whether it's the delivery of a vaccine, whether it's the counting of an inventory, whether it's the spraying of a stadium, whether it's the delivery of blood on the battlefield, the technology now exists for all of those things to happen in autonomous or semi-autonomous ways. And so from an ROI perspective, it becomes very clear very quickly that when you can provide those solutions, they're almost impossible to ignore. You have to do them in order to remain competitive. The third key component is adoption or acceptance. And interestingly enough, from a public standpoint, COVID has had a big impact on the adoption of drones, where they've moved out of the realm of high tech or even scary to the area of, man, these things can really help us operate in society, especially if we have to be contactless or we have to be highly efficient, or it falls into this realm of autonomy, which has had a big boost of understanding from the public at large through COVID.
And why would a government agency, a federal prison, a state prison, choose your technology over your competitors?
Well, I think it's three key reasons. One is trust, the second is reliability, and third is results. So from the trust standpoint, we're North American built and made, and we've got a track record of demonstrating that our systems are secure and that you can count on those things. From a reliability standpoint, our equipment, our software, it's all tested in the field. Everything we develop with our customers hand in hand. So they're purpose built. And so you're getting what you need. And the final thing really is results. At the end of the day, we stand behind our product and we stick with it until we have a solution that's right for that customer. Because we know that when we build a solution that's right for that particular customer, we've built a solution that's right for the industry.
Makes perfect sense. To recap, what's the main takeaway for investors today? Why should they consider positioning in the stock today?
I would suggest that the main takeaway is that we are at the beginning of what eventually will become a $1 trillion industry over the course of the next decade. It is the disruptive innovation that fits within autonomy. If you do a lot of the financial research that's popular out these days in terms of the size of the markets and the types of companies to invest in, we're definitely in that autonomy sector. Within that autonomy sector, we're in the drone sector, and we're the longest standing, one of the strongest brand names in that sector, and we have a demonstrated capability to deliver results that others just haven't had that opportunity to deliver. There's going to be one or two companies that are going to become the Microsoft, IBM, Apple, blah, 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 of the drone industry. I think we're positioned to be one of them. And where our stock is today is, in my opinion, where Apple was when it was $1.
And finally, let's talk about your uplisting to an exchange here in the U.S. What are your thoughts on that?
I think having the privilege of trading on a national exchange will do multiple things for our company. Most importantly, for our customers, it will demonstrate to them that we have the ability to run a solid, well-governed company on an exchange that also has incredible brand cachet and governance. It also signals to our employees career opportunity. It'll give us the opportunity to attract even greater talent than what we have right now to complete our mission within the drone industry. And finally, it's going to give us access to capital. And that capital today is all about establishing the brand leaders, the companies that are going to dominate this space for the next 25 years will be established in the next 24 to 36 months. Us going up to a national market will give us that opportunity.
Cameron, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now, to get more information about Dragonfly, visit DFLYFinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Dragonfly. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. Now let's recap the companies we featured today. First, we met American Resources Corp, stock symbol AREC on the NASDAQ. American Resources is well positioned to capitalize on the new infrastructure boom in the U.S. They acquired a large portfolio of met carbon assets at very attractive prices over the last several years, and they're now modernizing and monetizing these assets. Complementing these operations, the company has secured game-changing technology that could revolutionize the market for rare earth elements. Learn more at arecinfo.com. Then Dragonfly, stock symbol DFLYF on the OTCQB. Dragonfly has been operating in the drone industry for more than 20 years. The company is focused on providing services to a wide variety of industries. This sets them apart from pure technology-focused drone companies. Expect to see continued big contract wins moving forward that will ultimately drive strong revenue growth in 2021 and beyond. Visit DFLYFinfo.com to learn more. Again, if you have questions about any of the public companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, so please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new emerging growth companies.